You chose Stanford or Harvard.
That's the same thing with life. You have to work with what you've got. But for Stanford, it's more for their own data collecting.
So do you think that was the main activity that helped you get into Stanford, or was there any others that you want to detail?
It comes down to being good at what you do. It's about how else can you present this sport that you love so much.
To my knowledge, like the campus is very strictly guarded and like...
You should have helped somebody along your way.
Is this the one? 1 second.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you want to tell about yourself, like your background, your SAT score, your GPA, your APs, and in general, that's how we can get going.
Yeah, so for a bit of background, I come from public school. So it's a medium-sized school. During high school, I took 13 AP classes, had a 1590 on the SAT. And
1590 on the SAT?
1590, yeah.
So you're an international student, right?
No, I'm from the States.
Which state?
Colorado.
Colorado. Interesting. 1590 SAT and GPA. What was your GPA?
4. So the full, like, I'm not sure how like GPAs work in other countries, but it was like full GPA.
Okay, that's great. So what were the extracurricular activities that allowed you to get into Stanford?
I used to do a lot of debates, and I ran an education nonprofit and a few internships.
Do you want to tell more about your nonprofit and your, like, in more detail? What was the impact?
Yeah, so I used to run something called Apex SAT. It's an SAT tutoring company. I believe at its peak, 250 volunteers with 6,000 students across 70 countries. And I started this my junior year.
Did you say across 17 countries?
70.
70 countries.
Yes. We appealed to a lot of the American schools.
Okay.
And many countries in the world have English as a second language.
Yes.
We also had Mandarin tutors.
So the way it worked, you just, as a nonprofit, you taught SAT for free, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds amazing. So do you think that was the main activity that helped you get into Stanford, or was there any others that you want to detail?
I also worked as a translator for a few Taiwanese international films.
Okay, that's interesting. You can keep going. I'm pretty sure you have a lot of activities there.
Okay, so I had something like 30 million views on my projects cumulatively, and that was a pretty big part of the application.
Views, do you mean on social media?
As in, since it was full movies, there was the director gave me the information on theater as well as broadcast information since they put it on TV.
Oh, okay. Wait, you made movies as well, right?
I didn't make the movie. I translated it into English.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that sounds really nice. Especially the nonprofit part seems really impactful. Seems really took a lot of initiative. And what would be your advice for students who hope to study at Stanford one day?
I'd say find your interest early on and focus a lot on it.
Because
It's hard to rush towards the end. You shouldn't cram everything into junior year, but it should be a gradual project.
So essentially, find your interests and just
do something unique.
Okay. How did you find your interests? So how would you recommend finding those interests? Because a lot of people really struggle to do that.
So I would say during freshman year to explore a lot of things. Go read a lot, look up the news, watch videos online, anything that sparks your interest, and not just interest, but a genuine passion that you care about. Follow that path, experiment with it, but also don't limit yourself to just one thing.
What did you write in your essays for Stanford?
My essays were an extended analogy of model building. The little plastic models.
Sorry, could you repeat?
It was an extended metaphor talking about building plastic models.
Plastic models.
Yes.
Do you want to expand on that? Like elaborate what that means?
Are you aware of like plastic model building as a hobby?
I can imagine that, like using plastic to build different things, as I imagine.
Yes, and if you look down my account on Instagram, you'll see like what I mean.
Okay.
But
Okay, sure. But for our audience that is watching us right now on YouTube, like
what?
but for our audience that is watching us right now on YouTube, what would you say that, like, how could you explain it to them?
So with model building, it's whenever you get a kit, this little essay was about it's not perfect. Imagine building a Lego set, but it's missing pieces.
Sure, it's harder.
Yeah, it's harder, but you got to work with what you've got.
Sure.
You have to make modifications. You have to look for alternative pieces. That's what I wrote. And I said that's the same thing with life. You have to work with what you've got.
Interesting. Yeah. I could see the whole narrative that you were writing about, like the things maybe that you wanted, but you had to work with the things that you only got, etc. So that was your personal statement, right?
Yes.
What about your supplemental essays? What was their topic?
One of my other supplemental topics is where I talk about like being a non-native English speaker. So English was not my first language, and that caused a bit of an issue in elementary school, but that
Sure.
also motivated me to learn English more and start my translation project that I mentioned earlier.
Sure. Mm-hmm. English being your second language, how that was a problem, etc. Right?
Yes.
Interesting. What, in your opinion, is the number one thing that got you into Stanford, right? So understandably, you have high academic test scores and SAT and like solid extracurriculars and interesting essays. But what would you say was the number one thing that admissions officers could be, oh, like this is something unique to Emory. This is something that other students don't have.
I I actually did get to talk to the admission officer about it, and it ended up being the extracurriculars.
Extracurriculars.
I'll add on some more. Besides the ones I've mentioned, I also worked briefly on Washington, D.C., talking to congressmen.
Mm-hmm.
I met the former Speaker of the House, so the guy that's second in line to the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And the model building thing I did competitively. So I've won national championships for it, as well as other awards. I was 8th in the world in my debate event.
Okay.
A national finalist in health event, national finalist in business event. So a lot of competition.
Mm-hmm. So your extracurricular activities, how did you come about even finding those opportunities in the first place?
The competitions I mostly found in school clubs.
Competition, yeah, sure. But the opportunities where you talk to a congressman, did you apply to it? Was this like a program with application?
It was about like personal outreach. So this is another piece of advice I have for your students and viewers is that sure there are a lot of good programs that people have done. I could give you a few of them later if you want, but a lot of what makes people stand out is like being able to reach out to other people yourself. You can send the idea of sending cold emails is very often overlooked. Just emailing people out of the blue, explaining who you are and like asking for any sort of position. Maybe you're just a shadow. Maybe you want a fellowship or an internship. And to be blunt, you're going to be rejected from the vast majority of these emails. They're most likely not going to reply. But if you send enough, you'll eventually get somebody that notices you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's the lesson of being persistent.
It's called emailing for opportunities, for finding different opportunities, right?
Yes.
Did you do research during high school? And how much of that was a part of your extracurricular activities?
The only sort of research I did some archiving, but I'm not that much of a STEM person.
Mhm. What was your major when you were applying?
Political science.
Political science. And
Yes.
for political science, as far as I'm understanding, the talking to congressman part was relevant, of course, right?
Yes.
But building plastics and tutoring SAT, which of course demonstrates initiative and helping others and all of these things. What were the activities that were related to political science, except
Uh,
the talking to congressman?
Here's a tip for Stanford. They don't actually glue you to your major. You're not obligated to continue down the major that you chose, like in the application.
Sure.
So it's like it's more for them to like gauge interest. It doesn't really impact your chances for Stanford at least. For other schools like Johns Hopkins that I applied to, it can cause a pretty significant difference. But for Stanford, it's more for their own data collecting.
Sure. So they are looking for all of, well, mostly when I see students get accepted to Harvard, to MIT, to all of these places, they have like a few activities with their major. So it could be internship, it could be research, it could be a project that they started to help local students learn how to code, etc. For example, for CS majors. And also like the other part of their activities is something that is super diverse, so they did like swimming, they art, they did a lot of different things. So in your experience, it was more of like well-rounded, right? Well-rounded application in terms of your interests.
Or I wouldn't say well-rounded. I didn't have any sports or art or like traditional arts or music, for example. And there's a lot of like different. I think my application worked for others. I also was accepted to Harvard, but declined to go. And it comes down to being good at what you do. Like, if you want to compete in something, be the international champion, no matter what it is. I've seen people that my friends online that, like, for example, use a Rubik's Cube competition to get into Harvard. There's one guy I've heard of that used video game competitions to get into Harvard.
Yeah, everyone has their own thing, right?
Yeah. But I think that from what I've heard from like talking to admissions officers, it's less of a matter of like what exactly you're doing. It's more of like if you're doing something really, really good, it shows dedication.
Sure. Yes. So in your case, that would be advice to the high school students that are watching us right now would be to um, explore your interests, start cold emailing. Don't be afraid of cold email to the people to get these different opportunities. Um, explore your interests and just achieve the highest possible results within those niches, interests, and majors, right?
Yes. And when writing your essays, like be genuine to yourself. Like there's there's probably other people that can listen better for me than me, but like just be like very original when it comes to your essay and make sure it relates to that passion.
Mm-hmm. Be genuine. You know the advice of be genuine, or like how we can rephrase it, or the other form of it, be yourself. Don't you think that it is more of like, oh, I'm interested in sports, so let me just write about how I love football, and like even if it's really personal and like genuine essay with the soul, with like development at arc, that's can end up being like a very cliche sports essay, which is not going to necessarily get you accepted.
Yeah, but I'd say that there's a difference between being genuine and being cliche. It's not the idea of a sports essay that's cliche. It's the way in which it's written. Because most sports essays follow some shit like generic formula where I love this sport, but I got injured, but I had to overcome this injury. It's about how else can you present this sport that you love so much.
Mm-hmm. So writing about your interests, again, in a unique way in which other people haven't written it, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's actually very interesting. What were your other extracurricular activities? Because you mentioned four of them, I think. That would be non-profit SAT tutoring in one, and that would be talking to congressmen. The another thing would be like plastic building. You mentioned debate. Could you list all 10 of them?
Oh, so this is another thing I can, but I was a president of a few honor societies. I briefly worked with a like on a legal side of a small company. What else? But one thing that's very important is that most admissions officers don't really read or care about the ones past number five.
Is that what admissions officer told you?
Yeah. They care about your top five the most. It's a quality over quantity thing.
Yeah, sure.
Since some schools let you list up to 20, but that doesn't necessarily, you shouldn't force yourself to fill out all 10 just for the sake of it. Ideally, you should have like 7 or 8 just to show that you were doing things, but like you can, having one really good activity is better than having 5 mediocre ones.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. When did you start writing your essays, and what was your application deadline in general? Because to my understanding, to do all of these activities, you started very early. And could you tell more about your timeline in general? So when did you take the SAT? When did you start doing all of these activities? When did you have the goal of like getting into these top universities? And in general, the timeline that you were achieving these things.
So from the very beginning, from freshman year, this is where you start exploring the clubs that we talked about earlier. And sophomore and junior year is usually when people do the most work. They're most aggressive with pursuing competitions and internships, for example. And during the junior year, people generally start thinking about where they want to go. And it's typically in April of people's, at least in the US's junior year, that they take the SAT. Some people take it again a second time in May,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no limit to how many times you can retake it.
Sure.
And most people start writing their college essays in about 6 months before they submit
So that
their
was the
personal
same
statement.
for you as well, right?
Yes, this is my experience. And it's like pretty standard for among college students. And so there's like, I'm sure you're aware of the early and regular admissions rounds.
Yes, of course. I mean, that's just
Yeah. And so early is due on like usually late October. It changes year by year. And regular is due around January 1st.
yeah, sure.
And they usually send out results for early and like around December, mid-December ish, and results for regular around April 1st.
Yeah, sure. That's um I think I'm more interested in which school did you apply early and which schools did you apply regular?
I only applied Stanford early.
And you got in, you still applied to regular schools, right?
Yes.
Stanford wasn't your top choice? Or would you
Oh, Stanford was. I was just curious how many I could get in.
and what is the results? How many were you able to get in?
So there was Harvard, Yale, as well as Johns Hopkins, Williams, Washington University, UCLA. And I'm probably forgetting a few, but those are the big ones.
You chose Stanford or Harvard.
Yes.
How did your parents react to it? So,
That's what they wanted.
oh, okay. I'll give you a little bit of context. So, on the international side, I'm from Uzbekistan myself, and there's a lot of applicants, international applicants applying from all over the world, and that's understandable. But, like this international brand of Harvard, right, makes it like it's impossible to reject it. Like, um, just the sheer, I don't know, like this dream of like, oh, my child studies at Harvard or whatever. So, to my understanding, this is not really present or relevant in the U.S., right? Or is there certain element to it?
It's semi-common for somebody to choose like Stanford over Harvard, and like different schools have different strengths.
Yes,
So
you were going into political science. I mean, of course, you can change it.
yes, and Stanford has the Hoover Institution, so one of the big think tanks.
Yeah, sure. Interesting. Were you interested in other like aspects, maybe political science with other things, maybe STEM related? Because um Harvard and Yale, well, of course, it's not me judging your decision. Of course, you know which like decision that fits you the best, and in no way, of course. But what do you think about the Harvard and Yale's like political science and economics programs as compared to Stanford, maybe?
Let's say Yale is very good for pre-law,
Yeah, sure. Humanities in general.
pre-law and classics.
Theater kids, right?
Yeah, a lot of yeah, but I think the issue with Yale that especially if you don't visit it is that it's kind of in a weird place. Have you been to New Haven before?
Uh, I know the area is really not safe to say the least. Yeah. And but to my knowledge, like the campus is very strictly guarded and like there are I mean, of course there might be few incidents within the campus, but it's relatively rare, to my knowledge at least. Maybe you can prove me otherwise.
It is like the campus itself is generally okay, but like once again, students don't enjoy staying on campus 24/7.
Yeah, definitely. So the
And
criminal
Harvard is very spread out.
Har- Harvard is very spread out.
Yeah.
Sure. But Stanford is also spread out, right?
Yeah. Harvard is built into Boston, so you have to walk through a city block to get
Oh, yeah.
to
Sure, sure, sure.
your class. And
There are lots of
not a
different
lot.
schools, right?
Yeah. And the schools could be like a mile away from each other, and you have to walk through the city to get there.
Nice. At least people lose weight, right? Students.
Yeah, it's a good exercise.
Yeah. In Stanford, as far as I know, the campus area is also very large. So is it the same experience or do you just bike from one class to another?
Since it's all the university, it's you don't have to walk through a city. It's you pretty much only encounter students, and it's a very different experience having been to like gone walked around both.
Oh no, I haven't.
Yep. So that's Stanford, and most of the space is taken up by like grass and gardens.
Mm-hmm.
So the buildings are fairly centralized.
Interesting. What are your plans for the future? Maybe are you planning to go for a master's degree for the graduate school? Are you planning to just focus on building your career after graduation, or haven't you yet thought about those things yet?
Probably law school,
Law school.
but I'm still not confirmed. Just- The nice thing about here is that you don't have to decide what major you are until the end of your sophomore year.
Yeah, definitely. So you're exploring, I mean, that makes sense. Political science, pre-law, pretty much related, similar.
Yeah,
So Harvard Law School, right? In the future.
that's a consideration. I haven't actually decided which one yet.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. Yeah. I think, is there anything that you have to say because you achieved things like acceptance to those schools that many people dream of, right? And many people do a lot of things to get in. So, how would you want to leave? What example would you like to leave to the students who are watching us in terms of what they should do? So, is it just get good grades? So, in the junior year, or that would be in 11th grade, by the international standards, just get good SAT, study well, and really do a lot of extracurricular activities, and in terms of impact as well, and just write something creative in the essays. So that would be the part that we've already discussed. But is there anything else to your acceptances and to the things that led you to them?
And well, ideally, what things you should do should also have some benefit for society. Like you should have helped somebody along your way.
Helping your communities, essentially.
Yes. Like imagine like if they were to ask you, like if I were to take you out of your community, would they notice?
So if they were to tell, oh, so like a lot of the things that were provided them for free, for example, would disappear. A lot of the help that you're providing for free would disappear. Do you mean this?
Yes. So like if you're like suddenly gone, they would feel the absence.
Mm-hmm. And if they wouldn't feel the absence, you're probably not doing the right things, right?
Or it's not just about doing the right thing because everything takes time to build up is another thing I would add. It's like you have to also be patient with yourself. It's not gonna instantly become big. And
How did you grow your nonprofit to operate in 70 countries?
so I had a very good staff that I found from from doing all the debate. I met a pretty diverse range of people. And then we work together. There's a lot of collaboration with these. You have to learn how to like collaborate with and lead other people. And we also used like online advertisement a lot
Mm-hmm.
since you have a very successful Instagram account. So I'm sure you know that you could like see what country people are coming from and tailor certain ads.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's like target specific audiences. What is your nonprofit's name? Maybe like if it's still running.
It's called Apex SAT.
Apex SAT. I think I've heard of it. Is this the one? 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice. Interesting. I also see the results of the students that you coached, right? Duke, Brown, Harvard, or is it
Also, that's part of a speaker series. So we do something kind of similar to what you're doing now, where we would like interview people from various colleges.
mhm. And just host those webinars on the Apex SAT, right?
And we would like live stream it, and we sometimes have a few hundred to a few thousand viewers.
Thank you for the interview, and good luck in the future.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, mutually.